I'd like to call our meeting back to order if I could. And we have next on our agenda the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Southcott. All in favor? And that's been passed unanimously. And now we're into legislative matters. 12.1, new business, extreme weather response shelter update. And I believe we have staff providing some commentary before we get into questions. If I could remind the gallery that this is for listening at this point and it's council's job to ask questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Jason Gow, Director of Planning Services and Acting CAO this week. I am presenting a report that is intended to provide an update on the establishment of an extreme weather response shelter at a city-owned space in partnership with a community partner. Going back to December 16th, staff presented a report for information. There was no recommendation in it, but it was providing some advice as it relates to city-owned spaces. December 18th, Council resolved that staff be directed to activate city space in partnership with community partners to open a warming center or extreme weather response shelter. On December 19th, staff met with representatives from LIFT at 2 city-owned spaces, and these were the former library space located on the lower level of Dwight Hall and the former Wildwood Fire Hall. And just again, back to the December 16th date in that report that staff presented to Council, it was identified based on a request from LIFT that, at least from the position of staff, that neither the rec complex nor council chambers were suitable as a emergency weather response shelter space. Of the 2 locations, the former library space at the lower level of Dwight Hall was preferred by LIFT and city staff for several reasons. Its location and town site is closer to the city's central core, where many of those experiencing homelessness are drawn for other services. It's also further removed from schools and residential properties. And then lastly, while it only has 1 washroom, the limited number of entrances compared to the former Wildwood Hall, which has many, would make it much easier to manage the access and egress of guests. And not mentioned in the report, but a key factor in the decision was the layout of the spaces themselves. The former library is a 1,500 square foot space. It is 1 large space. The only enclosed space is the 1 washroom. So clear sight lines. Anybody managing that space would be able to observe the activity throughout that space. The Wildwood Fire Hall is a series of spaces, the larger of them upstairs, that would not be able to accommodate the 20 guests, and so the guests would be spread throughout. And again, just from a management perspective, it would have been much harder from LIFT's perspective to oversee and have eyes on the guests that are there. So I do want to touch a little bit on the concept, if you will, of the Extreme Weather Response Program. Under the Extreme Weather Response Program, which runs from October 15th to April 15th, an extreme weather shelter may only be activated when an extreme weather alert is issued by the delegated community representative until such time as the alert is canceled or withdrawn. To participate in the Extreme Weather Response Program, a community-based extreme weather response plan must be submitted to and approved by BC Housing. As the delegated community representative, LIFT has prepared and submitted the local extreme weather response plan for the 2025-2026 winter season. And based on BC Housing's website, on January 16th, LIFT is approved to operate an EWR shelter. And so just again, referencing the plan itself, it includes specific criteria that must be met before an extreme weather alert can be issued. And I included in your report, but just for those that are listening today, there are certain criteria related to temperature, where it has to be below 0. Wind chill feels like below 0. There has to be an accumulation of snow, rain near 0, and freezing rain, or 50 millimeters in 24 hours, and then wind, a severe wind warning of 70 kilometers or higher. And these are the conditions that would trigger an extreme weather alert. And if LIFT can mobilize at least 2 staff for each shift, then the extreme weather response shelter would be activated. And based on information from past winters where an extreme weather response shelter was established, the shelter opened between 5 and 15 times throughout the season. But as we know, it would all depend on the weather. And if we get a cold snap, then it might be required to open for a longer period of time. To date, we haven't had too many nights. I think we've dipped down into that zero a couple of times, but I don't think it's been extensive. That is really the crux of my presentation. I'm here with members of staff that are able to answer your questions for you as best we can. Thanks.
Thank you. So we're going to ask if council has, or the committee members have questions. I have Mayor Wasnow, Councillor Dowd, and then Councillor Palm.
Thank you. One of the big issues with LIFT previously was their unwillingness to have professional security. Are you aware when they had this application approved, did they include in their security for the time that it's open by a professional security firm?
Through the chair to the mayor, my understanding is that there is no additional security being provided.
Thank you.
Councillor Dowd?
Just this question isn't so much for me as it is for other people in the room who may not be aware of the history of the situation. But your December report was not the first one that this council has asked for as far as a cold weather shelter, cold weather emergency shelter. Could you go back and explain the history of what council has asked city staff to do over the last year as far as finding a space, either city spaces or private spaces that could be leased in that time?
Through the chair to Councillor Dowd. Yes, there has been a request by council for staff to not only review city spaces in terms of their suitability for an extreme weather response shelter, but also to establish an extreme weather response plan. You know, I think as I touched on in the December 16th meeting, staff have been at capacity trying to, in some cases, solve other problems. So we've invested a lot of staff time in what I would refer to as more permanent solutions. So whether, even though it's referred to as a temporary shelter, but the Barnett site is a site that will house 40 members of the community experiencing homelessness. Ideally, that site would have been open before the winter weather this year. Due to delays on all parts, it's not going to open until likely March. So an unfortunate situation. And staff have also been focused working with the COTW Coalition to End Homelessness to provide a space on Duncan Street where they are open for 6 hours a night, 6 to midnight, to provide meals and a place where people can do laundry and other facilities. And then on a much longer term process, staff have been very involved with the Complex Way initiative and are spending a lot of time on, again, what I would deem to be a permanent solution. And so the loss of the shelter did require staff to shift gears and focus a lot of attention towards that temporary Barnett site. And that's really where our energy has been on for the last number of months.
Councillor Palm?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I've got a few comments that I want to make in terms of a lot of the questions that were asked here previously today. First of all, I want to just say thanks to all of our citizens for showing up and voicing their opinion. This is something that this past term has not happened to a great extent. I can sense the frustration in our community as a result of not having regular dialogue. And that's why even before we came down from our previous meeting this morning, I said to Councillor Southcott, well, be prepared because people are going to get things off their chest today because they haven't had an opportunity to do so. Now, that's just the truth. And I sense your frustration, and I know how you feel as a result. And that's enough I'll say about that. But what I really want to say is, prior to coming here today, we had lengthy discussions on December 16th and December 18th in this regard as to what we were going to do for a shelter because LIFT could not find one. That has been going on for the last year. We know in our heart why that is happening. I'm not going to say why, but we know why. It's the truth. And it's been put on the city's desk to solve the conundrum so that we're looking like we're doing our humanitarian duty for these poor souls that are caught out there in this winter's weather. Which I say, we need to find something. That's why we passed the motion on the 18th saying, please staff, search everything, come back with something for us so we can deal with the situation. Because we're all compassionate. We are all Powell Riverites. That's what we are. That's how we live. And we're so fortunate to be living in this beautiful place. And we want the best for everyone. But I really feel sorry for staff today because I've had lengthy discussions with our acting CAO in this regard. And when we left the meeting on December 18th and we passed the motion, we put them in the lurch because they told us on the 16th there weren't any suitable facilities in the city. No buildings that would work because of the criteria. 2 bathrooms, entrances, fire safety, blah, 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 go down the list. Had to be in the center of the city. Well, we couldn't find any. We looked at the complex. We looked at this room. We looked at the library. There were reasons for not allowing any of that to happen. So that's why we're here today again with this situation when somebody mentioned Dwight Hall at the last meeting on December 18th, and that somehow became a focus. On December 18th, as soon as that word was mentioned, Dwight Hall, I said, no way. We are not going to look at Dwight Hall, that beautiful heritage jewel that we all know exists. And we welcome events that happen in that beautiful historic site. We cannot let that be damaged in any way, shape, or form. And I will not be voting to allow that to happen in any way, shape, or form today. I can assure you of that. We ended up with 2 proposals on the table, and staff had to take those away and look at each. One, the fire hall in Wildwood, the other one being Dwight Hall. Well, on the recommendation from LIFT, with staff listening to the conversations and doing the research, looking at both sites, LIFT said, there's the best one. That's why we're here. So, how we get around this, I'm not sure yet, but I hope we can come up with something that is going to work. And I want to take the pressure down a little bit by saying, keep it in mind that this type of accommodation in the last couple of years has only been used one year 6 times, 6 nights. The other year, I don't know, 12, the last couple of years. And our weather is warmer. We don't meet the criteria very often now. There's no snow on Mount Washington. There's no skiing on Mount Washington. That's the weather. That's reality. So how many nights are we going to need to do this? We don't know over the next month, because at the end of February, it's going to start warming up again. So we're faced with 6 weeks conundrum right now because we couldn't find anything, or LIFT could not find a suitable provider. And it's been thrown on the city desk, and staff is in the pinch. And we're all in the pinch because somebody brought up Dwight Hall. Unfortunate, but true. I've talked to our professionals on the fire safety. I know where they sit. I'm not going to speak for them, but I know where they sit. And the one other point that I want to make that is very important, because I had to ask the question this morning of our acting CEO, Mr. Gao. Are we mandated, because that was filtering around, are we mandated by the province to provide such a space? And his answer to me was simply, no, we are not. The city is not mandated to provide such. So that's where we are. So I just want to say, lower the temperature. This is not the end of the world here. We are going to survive. The people out on the streets are going to survive. And we will deal with this today in a reasonable manner without yelling and shouting and conniving and get through this in one way, shape, or form. So you've heard me speak along. I'm not speaking for Dwight Hall use. I will support a movement towards the fire hall because the cost of transportation is going to be the same no matter where you go, even though they won't like going out of the city. It's only going to be a few nights, and that building in Wildwood is expendable. Dwight Hall is not. Okay, I think I've said enough. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate what's been said here today. I was born and raised here, and I attended the cenotaph with my dad, who was a World War II veteran, and my grandfather was involved in building an awful lot of the houses in the town site. I'm proud of these things very much, and I feel as deeply as anybody in this room, I think. So I'm super grateful for the 100 or so people that turned up here, because I do believe that where maybe individuals or even small groups like a city council can't figure out what to do, we can do it as a community. And that is my deepest belief, and it's why I'm sitting at this table here. It's not because it's a whole lot of fun all the time, that's for sure. But somebody needs to sit here too, and I respect my colleagues because of that dedication. I just want to say again, I'm so appreciative of such a huge representation of our community being here today. When I was going through Facebook last night after I tried to respond to people and the emails were coming in, I'm sure we've received over 100 emails too, the city and council. I saw frustration, I saw worry, but I didn't see anger that was aimed at individuals, and I was really grateful for that. When everybody came in here today, there was a lot of smiling. It's like there's an inherent trust that we can figure this out. But the questions and the search, as Councillor Palm said, had been on for a year, trying to find a facility that would serve. Now, last winter, it was only used 9 times, the one that was beside the CRC for the emergency or the extreme weather response function. And that's what was lacking finally in December when Lyft couldn't find anything. There was nothing to rent or to buy that the province would pay for. So it fell to us having kind of the moral conscience and responsibility, feeling we've had the responsibility for this community to do something. So obviously, Dwight Hall is obviously it's an unconscionable option. This is really clear. But it's obviously too a last resort, So I do have, it's a question, and this is to staff. Could a fact sheet be put together that perhaps, I would hope, in cooperation with Lyft, to give our community some information on sequences of what's actually happened over the past year? Another problem is that when the CRC was relocated to over by Quality Foods, it wasn't, they're not able to use it like they did the one on Joyce. There were conditions in the rental there. So their ability to provide services that were provided at the CRC on Joyce were no longer a possibility. I'm thinking in terms of the collective genius that's in our community. When people start thinking and we care, sometimes ideas come up, and we've heard a lot this afternoon. So not everybody's just saying, no, don't do this. Some of us have said, think about this, think about that. And there's a lot of these things we've already looked into. I'm just wondering if there could be some kind of an information package or something that could be put onto our website, perhaps, or whatever might work, so that this information could get out to help people actually understand how to brainstorm. I'm really grasping at straws right now, but that's a question for staff. Would that be feasible? Would that be possible?
Through the chair to Councillor Southcott. I mean, if directed, staff could put together information. I would highlight that there is a tremendous amount of background in previous reports. So if community has the opportunity to read one of the many reports that have been drafted, I'm thinking of the December 16th, has quite a bit of background in it, with media releases and links to the province's extreme weather response program. But perhaps we could take that and build on it if that's what you think council thinks would make the community. Because what I understand, you're actually, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're talking about a little bit of relationship building. Is that a fair?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I think we would be working quite closely with LIFT, because a lot of that is really a relationship piece there.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to that effect, that staff work with LIFT to maybe pull some of the links out of work with LIFT to produce an information bulletin, taking some of the links perhaps out of that December 16 report or whatever, just to help people understand, so that we've got a place to go from in trying to figure this out as a community.
So I'm just going to ask staff, if, excuse me, in the gallery, we need to not talk, please. I'm going to ask staff if a motion such as that is something that is enacted at a committee of the whole or belongs at a council meeting.
Through the chair, to the chair, the corporate officer is suggesting that we can act on that without a motion. This is to avoid because what I think you're getting at, Chair, is this committee doesn't have power to direct staff. It would have to go to a future meeting of council, but I think we heard you. It would be more about whether council was comfortable with staff saying, we've heard you.
I'm just going to ask Councillor Southcott, who made the motion, if that works for him. Okay, thanks. Councillor Isaacson.
If we're still in questions section, I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Did you have any questions, Councillor Almeida? So I have a bit of a question. We've been hearing people from the community who are very, very concerned about Dwight Hall, and we all share a lot of love of our heritage area, the entire town site, and our Dwight Hall. Are there ways that the city, through their normal workday, would be able to include, checking in on fire protection, all of that kind of stuff in a preemptive way, should that place be activated to prevent someone from freezing?
To the chair, I think what you're referring to is just a greater role in supervision of the site and ensuring that we have a much more active oversight. I mean, staff are on site regularly in Dwight Hall, but we could include additional members of the team. I think you might be referring to bylaw enforcement as it relates to any kind of paraphernalia and other things that need to be cleaned up on a more regular basis. That is we rely on our bylaw team for that. So shifting our resources is something, again, if directed by council, we could do.
So I think you're absolutely correct. And then I want to sort of expand on that notion a tiny bit in that we kind of are a model of reactiveness to bylaw through complaints. And since it's our building and our responsibility, and we really, I'm assuming if it got activated at all, it would be only a few nights a week. Would we be able to have a fire prevention presence at all, or is that not something that would happen?
Chair to the chair. If you're asking for something like throughout an evening when there is someone there, I might lean on my colleague, the director of fire services, Chief Drakely, to speak about the impact that would have on serving the broader community. If it's about providing some form of oversight initially, after the fact, again, that would just be us shifting our staff capacity to arrange that, and we would seek council direction. I think, again, these are operational functions that take time away from other things, as well as financial impacts. These would be costs that now we have to be absorbed into budget.
So if our chief could possibly give us an indication of what could be done without further action, then we would have a better idea of what we're dealing with.
Chair, can I just get a better idea of what you're asking for service?
So my understanding of the emergency weather is to prevent people from freezing or dying during bad weather. So we're assuming that's not very often. We have so much worry and concern about our hall, and we want to protect it. Would going by to make sure things are being, like fire prevention and all of that, as practices are being respected when it's being used, be onerous with your current work and how you do it? Or would that be something else we'd have to ask for information about and make motions about?
Probably would have to ask for information about it to be specific.
Okay.
It's not, fire prevention is not something that the sponsors do.
Yeah.
And with the increasing call volume, it's, again, it would be best in further discussions or reports.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I got Mayor Wasnow who would like to.
Are we into motions?
These were questions, yeah.
But if there's no more questions, can I put a motion out?
Sure.
I'd like to move that our CAO advise the provincial government that the Dwight Hall, City of Powell River, is not available for a emergency warming facility.
So we could move that to council, I think. Would that be the right place for that? So would it be fair to ask staff if we could consider that a notice of motion for Thursday then, or?
Chair, yes, that would be more appropriate, be a recommendation that council undertake that action that Mayor Wasnow reflected in his motion.
Okay, so introduction of notices of motion come at item 14, and we're still on item 12. But if someone could flag that one, we'll just make that more formal when we get to 14.
Point of
Councillor Isaacson, what?
Well, I think actually Mayor Wasnow's motion could be addressed today. His motion could be that the committee recommend to council, and then the rest of his motion. And then depending on where that goes, it would show up on Thursday or not.
So that would amend the motion to the committee coming up with a recommendation for Thursday?
Yeah, that the committee recommend that council,
do you
notify
like that
BC Housing.
Do you like that amendment, Mayor Wasnow?
Yes.
Okay, so we could put that motion on the floor then. And anybody want to speak to that motion? Councillor Palm.
If the motion needs a seconder for with this motion that's being proposed, it'll certainly satisfy a lot of folks here that are against Dwight Hall today. And we'll have to deal with the aftermath. Dwight Hall is taken out of the equation on Thursday.
Anyone else have anything to say about this particular motion?
I do, Councillor Elliott. You might not be able to
Yeah,
see
it
me.
got really tiny for me, but go ahead, Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is obviously a very hard decision. The report that we were provided by staff today had no recommended motion or options. It was a report for information. And so any motions that come up tonight really would have to be initiated by a member of council like Mayor Wasno just did. Kind of to add to the conversation here, I wanted to share a few comments that were provided in emails to council to provide a bit of a balance for the public to understand the types of messages that we've heard, because we definitely heard a range of opinions in email, and I know not everyone's comfortable speaking in public. So with a little bit of leeway from the chair, a couple of quotes. The unhoused people are just that, people, Canadians. I would rather 20 people have warmth and safety for themselves and their health than see empty spaces sit unused. Thank you for utilizing Dwight Hall for some of the most marginalized people in our community. The amount of fear mongering and misinformation circulating social media is disturbing and bringing out the worst in this town. I understand the worry from fellow community members. This is a separate one. I understand the worry from fellow community members who do not want Dwight Hall ruined, but I care more about people's dignity and health than about material things. I hope that supervision will be provided to protect our heritage building, but mostly I hope that people can stay warm at night. And the third and final one I'll read. While ideally we would have a permanent shelter nearby the hospital, realizing that goal will take time, and until then we need a shelter space ready to go in case temperatures drop below freezing or the winds pick up. The report for information from December 16th makes it clear that suitable spaces for shelter are in short supply, so I'm glad that the Dwight Hall can be used as an emergency weather response shelter right away. Thank you for your courage and leadership on this issue. And so I share that just to those quotes just to broaden the debate a little bit. I don't support this motion, not because I think Dwight Hall is an excellent choice. I don't. I think it's not a great choice for an extreme weather response shelter. But I think for those who've been following this issue for a while, the only capacity that the city has to take action on this, because it's not our jurisdiction and we do not control private ownership in this town, is to use our own space. And we've put staff in a really difficult position, and I want to thank staff for doing the hard work. This has become a political issue for you, and I want to make sure that political nature of this decision sits on council. Staff are acting at the direction of council, and so thank you for your work on this. And so whatever decision council makes sits on our shoulders, and I'm happy to take that heat. I am not here today because I am quite sick, and I don't want anybody to catch whatever I have. I don't want BC Housing or Lyft to feel any sort of uncertainty over the next 2 days, which is why I thought dealing with this at Committee of the Whole to determine whether or not it would go to council was appropriate. I would like us to move ahead, and as Councillor Southcott said, the likelihood of this being used, based on previous years, 5 to 12 times. I speak as someone who volunteered multiple nights at the warming center last year that Mac Fraser spoke about, where there were where they didn't have issues. So it's not that this is perfect. It's not that there won't be a needle found somewhere. There will be impacts. It is imperfect, but it is the best option we have, given the options that we have before us. And so I appreciate all the people who've been saying, what about the churches? What about the rec complex? If any of those were possible and made sense given staffing models and restrictions, et cetera, or the willingness to get involved, we would have chosen those other options. But those are just not options given the previous information before us. So I appreciate the heightened concern for Dwight Hall. I appreciate that many people express care and concern for the unhoused in our community and would like to see a solution, but just not Dwight Hall. Unfortunately, with time constraints, there is no other solution. And so I freely admit this is not ideal. And also it is the best option that we have. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I have to ask people to be quiet in the gallery. Thank you. Did we have anyone else wanting to comment on Councillor Doubt?
So what to say? Oh, as we talked about, city has gone through a lot of discussion, a lot of searching to try to find a way for an extreme cold weather shelter to be operating in the city of Powell River this year. Not a brand new problem. We had an incredible problem figuring out how to get cold weather shelter going last year. Finally, we did after a number of special meetings. We had one that took place. It was across the street at the United Church. It worked well. It was a cold weather shelter. People got in out of the storm. It was open for a few days, not 10 days. I think it was probably 6 days last year with that worked, and people got in off of the street and got taken care of. The Dwight Hall is not a perfect situation, but staff has told us it's the best situation that can be occupied and can be operational right now when the cold weather is coming. We can delay it. We can try to say, well, there's a whole bunch of bureaucratic reasons why we couldn't do it, and we can make a decision sometime down the road, but I think we should stick with the one we've made. If people want the city to spend more money on bylaw officers and security people, perhaps that's what we have to do. I hear people saying they're in favor of that. And, I want to point out that the report basically says that what the city is spending on this extreme weather shelter right now is actually very minimal. It's only staff time to make the agreements. The BC Housing is actually paying the cost of operating the shelter. It's a building. The building exists. We have to keep it warm and we have to keep it secure all the time anyway. There is not huge amounts of money that are being spent. I think that we need to do it. And when I was thinking about all the emails I've seen the last few nights, I was thinking about, actually what I thought about was Matthew 25:35, which is a scripture in the Bible. And that's something I don't normally do.
To not talk, thank you.
I don't normally speak about that. But there is a line in there that says, I was a stranger and you welcomed me in. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about providing protection for the most vulnerable in our community. And we can say somebody else should take care of them. We should say, go somewhere else. Or we can do what I think we should do, is provide a reasonable space that's available that the city has to keep people warm and give them shelter. Now, that's why I am not in favor of this motion. You want to have a subsequent motion that says that the city will pay for security and fire patrols and all those things, I'd be quite happy with that. But that's my position.
So folks in the gallery, you're so welcome here, but you can't talk when councillor is debating motions. It's not proper procedure and it's out of order. I'm sorry, that's just how it works. You may wait till question period to ask questions. You will provide opportunity for input at public input period. And this is council's meeting. It's not a participatory sport, I'm afraid. It's, you know, you're welcome here to watch the deliberation, but you can't participate, I'm afraid. That's how the rules of governance work. So thank you so much for your cooperation. Sorry,
Point of order,
sir.
Chair.
Yes.
We got somebody shouting from the back row. This is a debate of council. We don't need people from the back row interrupting.
I rule in favor of your point of order. Did you have a remedy you were asking for?
I'm asking that people respect council's ability to debate the issue, keep quiet until there's an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Dowd. I agree with you. Your rule of order is in order. So what I need, so you're going to force my hand. We're going to have to clear the room if you keep it up. And that's not because that's what I want. I want you here. It's just that the rules of order in a governance forum like this is the public is here to observe council do their work. They're not to interfere in any way, shape, or form. And that's what I have to uphold as chair of the meeting. And so I want you here. You're welcome here. You need to let council do their work. Otherwise, you can't be in the room. And I hope that's understood. It's not because I'm trying to be a bad person or pick on anyone. It's because this is how governance works. Thank you. Carry on, Councillor Dowd. Were you?
I'm done. I'm not in favor of this motion. I think we should go ahead and provide the extreme cold weather shelter in the Dwight Hall with whatever protection the city council wants to pay for.
So Councillor Plum, you're just trying to get on for a second time. I'm just going to make sure that people have had their first time to speak. Did you want to speak, Councillor Almeida?
Thank you, Chair. Like other councillors have shared, Dwight Hall is not on my list of preferred options for this purpose. But council has asked staff, and staff have come through with an exhaustive list of the different facilities that we have. And the challenge with the cold weather shelter is that we need an empty space that doesn't have programming to store a bunch of equipment on the off chance that the weather turns and it needs to be activated. And there are not many buildings that the city controls that fit that criteria. There are some private enterprises, but we don't have influence over those. And even churches and other nonprofits that have space have other activities that take care, that operate during the week. So Dwight Hall would be near the bottom of my list, if not on the bottom. And but I can't support this motion without an alternate solution, because we've just dealt with a week plus worth of fog. I don't know what the next week or two are going to present itself. And I'm blessed to have a roof over my head. And I'd hate to think that someone else suffers because the weather turns and we don't have an opportunity to protect them. So I can't support this motion.
Mayor Wasnow, he actually hasn't spoken on this motion yet.
Thank you. I think it's important to clarify the direction that was given to staff on December 16th or 18th. And it was not to do an extensive study of what would be required to renovate, do whatever, to provide a facility. I've looked at the report. I understand what exists at the fire hall. And when the report says that there are a number of doors there, well, anybody who's been involved in construction knows you can lock a door. Probably takes $10 lock and 5 minutes of drilling. So if we were to provide direction to staff to make the fire hall meet all of the requirements of a facility which might be used 5 or 10 times a year, no doubt in my mind that it would happen. And if we had to get a non-for-profit organization to be involved in that, almost guarantee that they would work with the city to ensure all of that was done in a very timely fashion.
Thank you. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, through the chair. I've heard a couple of comments here tonight that in regards to this motion, that there's no other alternative, that time is short and we need to move. Well, that's simply not the case. We have two options that staff explored. Both are in the same position, Whitehall or Fire Hall in Wildwood. We have about a window here of a week or more before this extreme weather happens in our community. I've checked the weather report. We have time to go up to the Fire Hall in Wildwood and make that possible to be inhabited in the extreme weather that's coming. There is an option. If we simply vote down to Whitehall, that could be it. So let's not lose sight of that before we take this vote. There is another option. And it's the right one for this community based on all the feedback that we had here earlier today. And I hate to do this, but I am going to ask a specific question of our fire department. Both of you gentlemen, I'd like an answer, yes or no. Would you prefer that in terms of fire safety and loss of buildings and all the rest, would you say that you would support the fire hall in Wildwood over the White Hall?
Through the chair to council or committee, we can't recommend one or the other. If you ask me a question, I can base my answer on whether it's an acceptable use of the building and it falls under the fire code as acceptable. That's all I can give you.
So could you answer those questions for the facilities that are under question?
Both of the buildings are alarmed. I believe one is sprinklered, one is not. There's adequate fire suppression with the extinguishers in both for the occupancy, which is going to be assembly. So there'll be no beds in the facilities, and it's classified under assemblies. Just based on that, from a fire code perspective, I can just say that both buildings qualify.
Thank you. So I have a question of staff based on some of the feelings I'm hearing here. In order to switch gears and try to change to the fire hall, there would be a time delay because of the work you've already been doing and where we're at within this process. Could you speak a little bit to what that would mean?
Through the chair to the chair, I think the time you're referring to in terms of staff time is relatively limited. I think the bigger question is really what a change to the location would mean for the extreme weather response plan submitted by LIP to the province, and I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if that would delay the process another couple of weeks. That is something that I would need to speak to LIFT about. But if it's about city staff, and I think it was acknowledged that the building probably needs some updates to ensure that it's a bit more user friendly from the perspective of LIFT in terms of how they manage people coming and going. So again, if that's city staff that are being tasked to do that, we need some time there too. But I think what I would ask first and foremost is clear direction from council. Should you wish to direct staff to shift, we'd really appreciate hearing that as the clear direction.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to debate here. I just thought maybe understanding the repercussions of that kind of direction would be helpful to the assembly. So, do we have anyone else wishing to speak on the motion? Could we have the motion put up again? I think some of us, there you go.
It's on the screen. Motion as it stands, the committee recommend to council that city staff advise provincial government that Dwight Hall is not available for an extreme weather response facility.
So I would comment that I've heard from one of our members at least that they would prefer the recommendation have the alternative solution there instead of being just that something's not available. Do we amend the motion, or do we vote on it as is, and then if it doesn't pass, change to a different motion? Councillor Palm?
Friendly amendment. First part of this is fine. Central government and all the government agencies that are involved in this process. But we could simply add something that the staff would then pursue use of the Wildwood Fire Hall as the extreme weather station as soon as possible.
So the crafter of the motion was Mayor Wasnow. Originally, would this amendment be okay with you?
Yes.
Do we have any comments from the Assembly on this amended motion? Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question of clarity for staff, I guess, since LIFT has the agreement with BC Housing for the weather shelter, and they're the one that's they have to get the approval or the sign off on BC Housing. Is it instead of staff communicating with province directly, is that more in line that we need to loop in LIFT, and LIFT is the one that has to alter their application since we're not dealing with BC Housing directly on this?
Through the chair to Councillor Almeida, I appreciate your consideration, and in fact, that is probably the route it would go, although if it made council more comfortable, we could do both and engage the provincial government, but also LIFT. But my expectation is that in conversation with LIFT and them reaching out to BC Housing to indicate that they would like to shift the location, that we would achieve at least the intent of that first portion.
Are you proposing the amendment to add LIFT into the communication?
I would say that thing should be advised provincial government and LIFT if we're going to do a proper motion on that, since they're the ones that are arranging everything.
Are we okay with that?
You are?
Okay, thank you.
Isaacsen's got her hand up.
Pardon me?
Councillor Isaacsen's got her hand up.
Thank you for that. Councillor Isaacsen.
Thank you, Chair. Just speaking to this motion, maybe a little bit more about the implications of it. When LIFT gets approval from the province, it's based on a plan for that site. And so in order to switch sites, my understanding is that they would need to create a new plan, like how the space would be managed and set up. And so they wouldn't have to start from scratch, but I think they would have to do some substantive work and resubmit it to the province. So it's not as simple as taking their existing approval and just moving it over to Wildwood Hall. I suspect that they would have to resubmit. And so we're not looking at a delay of like a week. I think we might be looking at a delay of a few weeks. And I don't, at that point, it might only be needed for 2 weeks. LIFT might choose not to pursue that at all, given the amount of work that they have to put in to do that plan and hire for the shelter. I can't speak on behalf of them, but I suspect the repercussions are more than just being able to shift the existing approval and plan to a different site. And so I can't support this amended motion. Thank you.
So I was asking questions about that just earlier, and our acting CAO indicated that they'd have to get feedback from the partner in order to have an answer for that question. So maybe I'll follow up and ask, do you think we might have more follow-up with answers about that on Thursday if this motion was passed and it went to council?
Through the chair to the chair, I can commit to reaching out to Lyft first thing tomorrow morning. Ideally, we would hear back something so that we can report out on Thursday.
So then that information would help inform what council decides on Thursday. Okay, Councillor Dowd.
Yeah, so I just want to understand where we are right now. I'm taking it that you as chair are accepting all of the revisions to this motion. As we're not discussing an amendment, but you've accepted the changes to the motion. Am I right about that?
I think when I've finished discussing and we're sure this is the motion we want, I could check with the entire assembly and get consensus on whether we're okay with the amendments. If people are not okay with the amendments, I guess building a motion when we haven't had one provided ahead of time is sometimes a process, and making sure the motion reflects what our committee wants to advise to council was my priority at this point. And so we built it a little bit as we went. I could right now ask for unanimous consent that all these friendly amendments are okay with the committee.
You know, I'm not giving unanimous consent to approving the amendments to the motion.
So your suggestion on process would be that we continually turn down motions until we get to the one we want, or what's your thoughts on that?
You know, perhaps you have a better solution, Chair, but I'm suggesting we follow our rules of order and our procedure manual, which says that council makes decisions by making motions and either passing them or not passing them. We can either vote to approve these amendments, or we cannot. Either way, for me, the question is still the same. If we tell the city or we tell the province of BC that we will not accept the Dwight Hall as being available for a cold weather response shelter, however we qualify that, it means that finding an alternative place may take a prohibitively long time and result that no shelter
The gallery must
will
be
be
quiet.
available for this year. So I'm not in favor of the motion as amended before us, and that's my position.
Thank you. Mayor Wasnow.
So I want to address what Councillor Almeida raised. So this is a responsibility of the provincial government. And if they get notification from the city that we would not support Dwight Hall, but we would make a priority to work with Lyft to ensure that the fire hall would be available. And if we were to contact Radine, our MLA, who is a cabinet minister, and ask her if she would make this a priority for the provincial agency that's involved, this could happen very quickly. And if it doesn't happen very quickly, it's a simple message from the provincial government and Lyft that they're not really that concerned about it not opening in a month or 2 months. So I think we should deal with the amended motion, see if it passes, and move on.
Okay, because the question was raised about whether people agreed with the amendments or not. As the motion is currently stated, it includes a couple of amendments. I'd like to call a vote on whether the amendments pass or not. And so this will be a vote on amendments to the current motion. Do you need to speak on that?
Speak to the amendments? I don't think I.
Certainly. Okay, speak to the amendments.
Just want to state that
I can't hear you, Councillor Palm.
it's very clear that if the amendments pass here tonight and we vote on this motion and it passes, that further information in short order will be coming back on Thursday evening for further discussion. we'll have a better idea on a path forward and have a full synopsis of the situation to deal with it adequately. And so I'm in full support of the amendments and the motion, because as Councillor Wasnow says, he has the authority of the mayor, along with staff, to reach out to provincial government, reach out to representatives, and fast track this situation if need be. I don't believe that the hypothetical 5 or 6 weeks carries much water. Thank you, Chair.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendments before I call the question on whether we agree with the amendments? All in favor of the amendments? All opposed to the amendments? We have one opposed to the amendments, so the motion, oh, did you go opposed? No, you didn't vote at all?
Go ahead. You're the chair.
Sorry, can you tell me how you voted? Councillor Doubt, how did you vote?
Again?
Well, okay. Okay, I'll ask again. All in favor of the amendments? And all opposed? We have one opposed, and so the motion carries, and the motion is now on the floor properly with amendments adopted. So we're back to the main motion with amendments. Does anyone wish to speak to the main motion with amendments at this time? Councillor Doubt.
Been around the mulberry bush a few times, but I want to, my feeling is I am against this. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think we should go with the Dwight Hall, do whatever we need to do, the protection of the Dwight Hall, because I think it's important to get an extreme weather shelter in place.
Councillor Almeida.
Sure. I think being in Wildwood, the fire hall provides other challenges, just being up a big steep hill on a potentially icy day. So I don't know if it's any better solution. Excuse me.
The gallery has to allow Councillor Almeida to talk without interruption of any kind.
So I don't know if it's any better solution, but as it's going to be a final vote on Thursday, and we hopefully will have a little bit more information from the lift side by then, I will vote in favor right now so that we can discuss it again on Thursday and finalize it.
Do we have any other people wishing to speak to the main motion? So I'm just going to take a couple of seconds. I think that giving us the opportunity to get more information in order to make a decision, the 2 days we can do. I do respect some of the opinions saying the uncertainty of waiting in those 2 days, but I also want to consider all of the information that we have in a situation like this. So I'm going to vote in favor of putting this on the council agenda for Thursday. And I'm going to find out if we could specifically ask staff for what their thoughts are on accessibility during that kind of a bad weather situation. I guess there are some weather situations that close the Wildwood Hills, but and whether there's any information on that and how many times that happens and so forth. That would be great to know as part of our deliberations on Thursday. If you can't, that's fine. It would be appreciated. If we're done with deliberations, all in favor of the motion on the floor? 2, 4. Any opposed to the motion on the floor?
I'm opposed, if you can't see me.
You're very tiny, so you're opposed, right? Okay.
Correct.
So we have 5 in favor and 2 opposed, so the motion carries, and we will get more information on Thursday night, and it will be on Thursday's agenda. Thanks so much, everybody, for your patience.